Welcome back, everybody. So by now you should be getting relatively familiar with the Linux terminal, and we want to continue delving into this operating system that we've been learning about. So today we're going to try and learn more about the Linux operating system and specifically the Kali Linux distribution of Linux, and we'll talk about that. And then we're going to continue to learn some new commands. So previously you've learned a little bit about the Linux file system, and you've learned a little bit about managing files. You've also learned a little bit about users and permissions and a few other things. And we're going to continue now to add some tools to your Linux command line tool belt by covering some things like how to get help with commands if you don't understand exactly what they do or the options available with those commands. We're going to learn a little bit about the manual that is actually inside of the various distributions of Linux. You're going to learn a little bit more about downloading files and viewing files, but we'll get into that in a minute when we head over to the computer. Just remember that about 75% of internet servers in the world are running on a Linux operating system. And to communicate with those servers, you're not going to be able to just point and click with the mouse. You're actually going to need to go to the command line like we're doing here, and you're going to need to be able to type out commands to those servers in order to get what you want out of them. So let's step over to our computers now, and let's continue learning more about the command line and Linux.
More on the Linux operating system. So here we are on our desktop. In this instance, I am actually virtually logged in to a desktop over the internet. This is allowing me to practice working on a completely different kind of computer than the one I am actually logged into. The computer that I am physically working on is an Apple computer that is set up for my day-to-day office and personal use, but I want to practice and demonstrate to students what it is like working on a computer that is set up for cybersecurity personnel and hackers. So in order to do that, I am logged in to the Virginia Cyber Range. The Cyber Range allows me to remotely log into a computer set up for cybersecurity and hacking functionality without physically possessing such a computer. But you don't have to be using a virtual service like the Cyber Range. You can set up a computer you own just like the virtual machine I'm using. All the software we will be using is open source, and that means it's free. Let's talk about this computer, cybersecurity, or hacking setup. You and I are almost certainly using different hardware for this lesson. Computer hardware is any physical device used in or with your machine, whereas software is a collection of code installed onto your computer's hard drive. We will be using the same software, so while the tasks we perform may take different amounts of time based on the processing power of our computer hardware, the end results should be the same. The essential software that manages a computer's hardware and software resources and provides common services for computer programs is called an operating system. There are 5 kinds of operating systems that are most commonly used in the world. The operating systems most used on mobile devices like phones and tablets are Google's Android operating system and Apple's iOS. Most desktop computers and laptop computers use the Microsoft Windows operating system, or on Apple computers, the operating system called Mac OS. The Apple operating system, comes installed on Apple devices, and its cost is essentially integrated into the cost of the devices. For the most part, OS only works on Apple hardware. The Windows operating system is created and sold by a company called Microsoft. Windows is not free, although its cost is frequently included in the price of a new computer when you buy one, and often comes pre-installed. When a new version of Windows is released, you have to pay for an upgrade if you want it. Android is an operating system created by Google that works on mobile devices like phones and tablets. Unlike the other operating systems we have discussed so far, Android is open source. Open source software is free, and users can access the code and make changes to it if they want. Finally, there are the Linux operating systems. Linux operating systems are also open source. They are built around a core program called the Linux kernel, which controls everything in the system. People build different distributions around the Linux kernel and make them available for download. Different distributions include not only operating systems, but specific desktop environments and other software tools. This brings us to our computers or virtual computers set up specifically for cybersecurity purposes. Cybersecurity personnel and hackers often install a distribution of Linux called Kali Linux on their computers. It is free. Someone who wants Kali Linux need only go to the Kali Linux distribution site and create an install disk or drive, then boot their computer from that disk. The Kali Linux site has all the instructions and resources necessary for doing so. There are a variety of Kali Linux packages or meta packages available. They have different selections of free cybersecurity and hacking tools. We are using Kali Linux Full, the default Kali Linux install meta package. Here is a Kali Linux desktop. When you log into your Kali Linux computer, you log in as the root user by default. The root user has access to all commands and files. The included web browser is Firefox. Here is the file browser. Click here for the Applications menu. And of course, here is the terminal. Much of what cybersecurity experts do is done in the terminal, so commands are typed rather than given with a mouse. The commands we type in the Linux terminal can be called Unix commands, as they are based on the typed commands used in an early operating system developed by AT&T called Unix. In earlier lessons, you have learned to use a variety of Unix commands from the command line of your terminal to do things like navigate the file system, manage users, groups, and permissions, as well as manage processes. As we go forward, you will continue to sharpen those skills, so let's practice using a few more Unix commands. Remember, we will be covering relatively basic uses of commands. Many of these commands allow you to include options that we won't cover now. The H or help flag. If you're not sure how to use a specific command, run the commands along with the flag H or help. You'll see usage information and a list of options you can use with the command. For example, if you want to know how to use the wget command, type wget flag help or wget flag H. As is usually the case, this prints a lot of information to the terminal, which can be inconvenient to scroll through. To get the output more easily, you can pipe it through the less command, which allows you to scroll through it with the arrow keys on your keyboard. Piping in Linux is a way to send the output of one command, program, or process to another command, program, or process for further processing by typing the vertical bar or pipe symbol between them. For example, use the following command to get wget's help output through less. wget flag piping symbol less. So here is the help information on wget. wget is a command for downloading files from the internet by typing in wget and the URL of the file you want. You can see that help displays the many options available with the wget command. When you're done scrolling through the help information, press Q to close the less utility. Another way to get help is by using the man command. It is used to display the man pages. The man pages are a user manual that is by default built into most Linux distributions. Man is most commonly used with a keyword. The keyword is the exact name of the command or other item for which information is desired. For example, the following provides information about the ls command, man ls. Next, let's learn the cat command, which displays the contents of a file. So, let's use the wget command to download an HTML file from the internet so we can use the cat command to take a look at it. I'm going to type in wget and then the address for the Wikipedia page on Linux. This downloads the actual source code of that page. If we look at my directory, there is now a file called Linux. If I type in cat Linux, all the source code scrolls by. The head command. The head command reads the first 10 lines of any given file. For example, let's use the head command on that Linux file. Now, let's just browse to that page and reveal the source code through my browser. Here on the left, each line of code is numbered. Some of the lines are really long, so there is a lot of code in those first 10 lines. You can't see all of it in a single terminal window, but if I scroll around, you can now see that code displayed in my Linux terminal. It is indeed the beginning of the source code for the Wikipedia entry on Linux, the tail command. The tail command reads the last 10 lines of any given file. If we again use it on that Linux file, we can see the last 10 lines. The PS or process status command is used to provide information about the currently running processes. I don't have any processes running, so let me open Firefox. I'll add the and symbol or ampersand so it will run in the background while I continue using the terminal. Now I'll run the PS command. Without adding options, PS will output 4 items of information labeled PID, TTY, time, and CMD. PID stands for Process Identification Numbers. Time is the amount of CPU, Central Processing Unit, time in minutes and seconds that the process has been running. CMD is the name of the command that launched the process, and TTY, which now stands for terminal type, is the name of the terminal that the user logged into. PS flag AUX is a way of using PS to obtain much more complete information about the processes currently running on the system. The A flag tells PS to list the processes of all users on the system. The U flag tells PS to provide detailed information about each process. And the X flag adds to the list processes that have no controlling terminal. Linux operating systems come with a kill command, which terminates processes. The command makes it possible to continue running the server without the need to reboot after making a major change or update. Let's take a look at some specifics of the kill command. Kill plus a process identification number terminates that process by properly running its shutdown routine. So, I'll use the PS command to find the PID for Firefox, then kill that PID to terminate the process. Now, I'll run PS again, and we can see that Firefox is no longer running. Sometimes an unresponsive process will not respond to the general kill command, so instead you might use kill flag 9 plus a process identification number, which terminates the process immediately without running its shutdown routine, which could lead to data loss. Kill flag HUP plus a process identification number is commonly used to tell a process to shut down and then restart. pkill and kill all allows you to kill a process by name rather than PID.
Okay, so now hopefully you have a better understanding of what the Linux operating system is, and specifically a better understanding of this distribution of Linux called Kali Linux that we are using. Also, when you get on the command line now, you should be better able to download and view files and get help with specific commands if you don't understand them or their options by using the flag H or the manual commands inside of the command line. I now want you to go ahead and create a Google Slides presentation that you're going to use as sort of an index of the various Linux commands that we have covered so far and will continue to cover. We'll probably add to this slide presentation as we go on. And on each slide of a new Google Slide presentation, I would like you to enter the specific Linux command and then the functionality of that command, what it does. Also, I would like you to take a screenshot of your terminal of the input of the command and the output you get from that command. If it's a really long output, I just need the input and the beginning of the output for that command so that I can see that you've correctly entered it in. It'll give you a chance to use these various commands that we've covered on the Linux command line so far, and it'll also give you a reference to go back to in the future if you are not certain exactly the syntax or the functionality of a command that you need to use when we're on the Linux command line. So I look forward to seeing these slide presentations. I hope that you learned more about the Linux operating system and the Kali Linux distribution of that operating system, and I'll see you next time.